building relationships and building Waterloo Region. 570 News presents Business to Business, powered by Save on Energy. Here's your host, Glenn Pelletier.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Business on 570 News, powered by Save on Energy. And we're doing something a little special today on today's show. The boys are live from Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. And here we go. I'm pleased to be joined by Ian McLean and Greg Durocher from the Conference Center in Charlottetown. Gentlemen, can you hear me?
Well, I can certainly hear you, Glenn, but we're still waiting for Ian McLean's arrival. Now, I'm not sure whether he's slept in or what he's done, but he hasn't arrived yet into the room. But
you know what he's doing? You know what? He pinned me moments ago. He's still touring at the Anne of Green Gables museum. He's absolutely enthralled by its offerings.
Well, and of course, you and I have had discussions about Ian McLean in his presence, and we've always reflected that Ian's sensitive side is pretty deep.
Indeed. Okay, gentlemen, or Greg.
Now, hang on a second. I want to introduce a good friend of Ian.
Before you do that, can you explain what you're doing in Charlottetown? Because I don't even know right now. You guys just took off like a bat out of Hades late last week and said, "Hey, we're in Charlottetown. We'll explain." So do explain for myself and our listeners.
Well, we're actually pleased to participate in the democratic process on behalf of business across this country by sitting down as a collective group from coast to coast to coast and discussing and debating business policy that the Canadian Chamber of Commerce will take into their portfolio in the coming year and lobby the government to create a more vibrant and strong economic Canada. So, this is a very critical for us to be involved with because it is setting national policy as it relates to business in a myriad of categories, all the way from taxation all the way through to environmental issues. But what I'm really excited about, because it gives us an opportunity to connect with our colleagues across the country, but more importantly, even our colleagues right here in the province of Ontario. And Ian and I are really, really pleased to have a good friend of ours and good colleague of ours who is the president and CEO of the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, and that's Keenan Loomis. So thanks, Keenan, for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Greg. I think I got picked because I was sitting next to Greg at lunch. He was about to go on the show, and he said, "Hey, you want to come on the radio?"
That actually happened, Glenn. You won't believe it. And this is the way the Chamber Network is Keenan jumped right up and said, "Yeah, sure. If I can stand in for Ian while he tries to find his way to the room that we've booked here." He said, "I'd appreciate having the opportunity to do that because it's critically important for us to convey the message of business."
Now, guys, this is for our listeners. Now, is this the annual gathering of the Canadian Chamber?
Yes.
Okay, it's a once a year conference, right?
Yeah, thank goodness.
And is Perrin Beatty there, president of the COC?
Yes, he is.
All right.
Absolutely. And we also had this morning, and we're going to be talking about this a little later with Ken Colby, the CEO of the Alberta Chamber of Commerce, and Alan Odette, the CEO of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. He was talking about the temporary foreign worker program, which but you're gonna hear a little later the program that largely businesses are struggling with the federal government's approach to the solutions to temporary foreign workers. So. But they'll be really interesting. And also, Alan Odette's going to take on a little bit of information. As you well know, Glenn, we've been chirping this for a long, long time about the fair and open tendering process of municipalities in Ontario. And Alan Odette is going to come on, the president and CEO of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. He's King Tut in Ontario as it relates to chambers of commerce. He's a little guy, but he's a.
So was King Tut.
But he's going to bring us an update because I had the pleasure. He graciously asked me to come and meet with him and his senior policy guy with Minister Flynn, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well in the show. But I'm really, I actually have my lunch in front of me right now. Keenan and I didn't get a chance to finish our lunch.
What are you having, Greg?
I'm not roast pork and potatoes, and it's wonderful.
You got to have the PEI potatoes, eh?
Keenan, what?
Oh, it was the first non-seafood meal we've had. So
yeah.
I'm really happy we have meat in front of us.
Guys, can you explain what the mandate of the annual gathering of the Canadian Chamber is? What is its intent?
Well, its real intent is to set the standard of policies from from and I guess the verbiage around the policy to really advance business in the country. And it's, this is a lot of it is grassroots policy. So it's chambers from across the country, and there's some 1,800 chambers across from coast to coast to coast that all throughout the year have been sitting down and identifying issues and problems that their local members are having, and then it gels up to the top where we all collectively come together and sit down with our provincial counterparts as well and really develop some strong advocacy issues that Perrin Beatty then takes and sits in the Prime Minister's office or Minister's office and makes sure that the voice of business in Canada is heard. Keenan, you want to talk about the importance of it as well?
Well, so on top of that, we always talk about the power of the network, and I don't think we have any power if we actually don't see each other face to face and spend time getting to know each other and getting to understand each other's issues and collaborating on these matters. So, there's no other institution within Canada that actually has the same reach that we do, the same number of leaders within each of the communities throughout Canada. And so that's very important to make sure that we all act in a coordinated fashion.
Are you still there, Glenn?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's very nice of you. Are we still on?
We are still on.
That's good. Ian's still not here, by the way. I'm not quite sure what happened to him. I do know that he went to church this morning. I know his mom and dad always listen to the show, so they'll be happy to know he went to church and said a prayer for all of us, because we've been trying to set up diligently for the show, in which he seemingly had no intention of participating in. But
all right, we're on with Greg Durocher. He is live in Charlottetown for the annual meeting of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, joined in discussion by Keenan Loomis, CEO of the Hamilton Chamber, and then a little bit later you've got Alan Odette. He is the president and CEO of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, and you've also got Ken Cobley, president and CEO of the Alberta Chamber. So Ken and Alan will be joining you later?
They're in the room right now, and we'll just I think when we get to segment 2, we'll start to have them participate, and they're going to give you really a broader picture from a provincial perspective. And these two gentlemen run powerful organizations within their province from the perspective of business, and are well connected. But more importantly than that, have the opportunity to hear the issues of business from the smallest of communities in their province to the largest of communities in their province, and have a very deep knowledge of what really is either doing good for business in our provinces or doing harm for businesses in our province. So they'll be great guests to have on, and I'm sure, Glenn, you're going to have a ton of questions for them as well.
Well, let's continue the discussion with Keenan Loomis then, and he's still there?
I am.
You must be breathing a huge sigh of relief that they finally got that gosh darn stadium finished. I mean that from a business standpoint, I mean the Tiger Cats are hugely important to your area. Were you you're paying special attention to that and hoping they would get the darn thing done like lickety split?
Well, I mean, as you might know, this has been a huge issue in our community for a number of years. Not just the construction of it, but the location of it was a few years battle within our community as well that really engaged a lot of people. So, for about 5 years, the community of Hamilton has been focused on one building, and that's the stadium. We also have an LRT debate happening in our community as well. But, yes, we're definitely happy that the stadium is done. It looks beautiful. I'm happy where it is, actually. It's time to move on and embrace it and make the best of it.
You mentioned you're having an LRT debate in your community, Hamilton. That we are having or had a raging debate up here. It's kind of eased up slightly, but still a contentious issue for many. What are folks saying down your way about the proposed LRT in your city?
Well, I mean, so this is a difficult issue to wade into, but basically, we have a strain within our community that doesn't want to spend more. They don't. They are, struggling with an $800 million gift from the provincial government, and we really don't have alignment within the community. And one of the things that I heard about the KW LRT matter was that actually, so there might have been a lot of opposition, but not among the tier of leadership in the community. And so Minister John Malloy, I've heard received a couple inch thick pile of letters from leaders in the community supporting LRT and seeing the wisdom behind that infrastructural investment in that community.
Yeah, there are some detractors, but you're right. They're primarily on the sidelines, so to speak.
And our detractors exist among our mayor and council and all of that. So, of course, the province isn't going to hand us any money when we don't have our own.
What's your view on it, as from your perspective as president CEO of the chamber? Do you endorse it? What can you tell our listeners who may be anti LRT? How significant is its approval as far as you're concerned?
I absolutely endorse it because I believe in the business case. I believe that if you make an $800 million investment in Hamilton, you're going to yield far more than that down the line. And I think that some people just lack vision, and some people are so fixed on first of all the costs. I mean, yes, they're huge, but again, let's look at this as an investment rather than a tax. And the other thing is, this is going to be placed in an area of Hamilton along King Street that has, been hollowed out by poor infrastructural investments and decisions and policies and designs in the past. If anybody has been to Hamilton, you will know that we have a series of one-way highways that cut through our downtown, and they create inhospitable environments in which to do business. And so LRT is a way of correcting that and bringing vibrancy back to our commercial business.
Well, you know what? There was a hue and cry in the late 40s in Toronto when they proposed the subway system there. There were many that rallied against it, and it came to fruition in 1953. Can you imagine a city like Toronto without a subway system? I mean, you have to have some, you have to look many, many years into the future to kind of to understand why these projects that have legitimacy.
And that's why when we talk about what we do here at the Canadian Chamber and the Ontario Chamber is, the chamber network really has to be looking at the future and where's business going, not where it's been in the past. And we've had our debates, and we've had lots of people on the show, Glenn, over the last 2 or 3 years, or 2 years, talking about why they're the case for or against the LRT. But what's important is the chamber network, and whether Greg and I and other business leaders saying we have to move forward. And
all right.
That's where the issues that we deal with today at the Canadian Chamber and the Ontario Chamber and the Alberta Chamber.
By the way, Glenn, as you can see, Ian McLean has walked in the room with his putter in his hand.
Indeed. He's got his.
I was praying for all of these gentlemen at Trinity United Church this morning. So some of us got church in and can do a radio.
No, Ian, we listen. We know you went to the Anne of Green Gables Museum for a second straight day.
I didn't know I passed that as well.
I want to know what church it is that you have to take your putter with you.
I do have a putter, Glenn, but it is a putter going to my sister-in-law from her mother, who I just visited at Trinity United Church in Charlottetown.
Hey, listen.
5 blocks from here. Greg was not able to make it this morning.
I can't imagine your weather being better than ours. Have you heard about what a glorious day it was yesterday and now today?
It's been spectacular here.
Oh, really? Ours is better than yours, I guarantee it.
25 degrees and sunny without a breath of wind today.
All right. Okay, we're going to come back. We're going to come back and continue the discussion. Ian McLean and Greg Durocher. They are live in Charlottetown for the annual meeting of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and they are joined in discussion with Keenan Loomis. He is the president and CEO of the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. A little bit later in the program, we'll hear from Alan Odette, president, CEO of the Ontario Chamber, and Ken Cobley, president, CEO of the Alberta Chamber of Commerce. We're coming back with more as Business to Business, powered by Save On Energy, continues.
We'll be right back with more Business to Business, powered by Save On Energy. Call in with your questions at star 570, 570-2545, or 1-800-570-5715. You're listening to Business, powered by Save on Energy, featuring local businesses, solutions, and success stories, connecting community through business on 570 News.
Welcome back to Business on 570 News. This segment is brought to you by our good friends at Cowan Insurance. And I would be remiss. Are you there, Greg? Are you there, Ian?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is Greg there?
Yes, he is.
Greg.
Yes.
Congratulations, my friend.
Oh, thank you very much.
Greg Durocher winning, and they announced this at the annual meeting in Charlottetown last night. Greg Durocher has won the Executive of the Year, the Chamber Executive of the Year award at the annual meeting of the Chamber Executives of Canada. Chamber Executive of the Year. Congratulations, Greg. This is quite the honor.
Thank you very much.
Well, we at the Greater KW Chamber lobbied against this, but they won. He won notwithstanding. But seriously, this is a big deal in the chamber world to be the Chamber Executive of the Year. That's right across the country, and that's voted on by Greg's peers. And notwithstanding my issues with Greg, everyone else seems to think he's a pretty good. There was one dissenting vote. It was not unanimous. One of the things we've been working on, Greg and I, and we've had our weekly rant on the fair tendering issue over the last year, and we've also been dealing with issues like interest arbitration. So we're going to be joined after the break by Alan Odette from the Ontario Chamber, and he's the head of all of our 150 or so chambers in the province of Ontario. So we'll be talking about those issues because that's still on our radar. Municipal elections are here now, and this is a big topic for municipal councils. But right now we're joined by, and I don't know you'll remember, Glenn, but we're joined by Ken Cobley from the Alberta Chamber of Commerce. And we talked last year, I think we were on around this time.
That's right. Yeah,
and in Kelowna, and we were just at the end of the floods that had happened in Alberta, and talking about the needs not only that came out of the floods, but also the important connection between manufacturing in the region of Waterloo and Cambridge and Kitchener-Waterloo, and how there's lots of business opportunities for our listeners in Alberta. So we thank Ken for taking the time out from the conference here to talk to us. Welcome.
Well, thank God to be here.
This morning, Ian, while you were praying for us,
I was definitely praying for you. Extra special heart.
I know you were, and I was diligently listening to Minister Kenney talk about the trained foreign worker program and other immigration issues, for that matter, and both provincial chambers, the Ontario and Alberta Chambers of Commerce, are quite involved with this, and actually every single one of them are. But it was interesting this morning to hear Minister Kenney talk, and I would say largely, and Ken, you can maybe either validate this or not, but I would probably say largely most of the people of the 700 or 900 delegates, however many are in there, aren't really fussy on the way the federal government has dealt with the trained foreign worker program.
No, I mean my impression has been reinforced that the business community is not buying what he's selling. I really wish, if you were praying this morning, that you would have prayed for the minister to have an epiphany to recognize just how important the issue of labor shortages, both unskilled and skilled, are in Alberta, and therefore to the economy in Canada.
We only had an hour in church, and I spent most of it praying for Greg, so I didn't get to specific issues. But I can tell you, I agree with you 100%. People, even in our community, that are not as reliant on temporary foreign workers, are still talking about it, because in pockets, even in the region of Waterloo, it's a huge issue, and it's even more pronounced in places like Alberta. And so tell us specifically, from your perspective, what are the sectors that are really harmed by the changes in this? Tell us what the change was, and tell us where you're really.
So what happened is the government took the stance of changing who they consider to be unskilled labor. Okay, so unskilled labor used to be specific occupation codes. They're primarily in food and food service and that sort of thing. Now what they've done is they've said anybody below the median Alberta wage is considered to be unskilled. Well, the median wage in Alberta is $24 an hour. So if you extend that out, it's $50,000 a year is now considered. If you earn less than $50,000 a year in Alberta, our government considers you to be unskilled, and therefore subject to the new temporary foreign worker rules. New TFW rules require basically that any employer that's above 30% usage of TFWs in their workplace within 2 years has to get down to 10%. Okay? And that means that as they could either gradually go down or go down all in one fell swoop, because at the same time, they changed the rules as far as the renewal period. When the folks were originally brought into the country, they were promised a minimum of 2 years, a maximum of 4. Well, in June, that got changed to 1 and 2. So if you got
if you got half of your employees, half of your temporary foreign workers, could in fact be going home next week, and you got no way to replace them because you're above the 10%. The other thing they introduced is they went from a $285 application fee to now where every employer has to pay $1,000 for every temporary foreign worker they hire. The other myth that's out there is this idea that temporary foreign workers are a cheap source of labor.
So, for some of our listeners, they will say, well, how does this affect me? So bring it back to, and this is where it's appropriate to have both the Ontario Chamber and Alan and yourself connect the dots for us of why it's important for our members that we're talking, because we know why it is, but connect that why it's important for the Greater KW and the Cambridge Chamber. And the second thing is put some color on this. What types of jobs are we talking about? Are we talking about people that are, making widgets? Are we talking about, what are the types of skills that you're missing that you require temporary foreign workers for?
Well, certainly in the changes that happened to the temporary foreign worker program, the most aggravated area is what you would refer to as unskilled. Food service, daycare, elder care, those types of areas which traditionally have depended on immigrants to handle the job. A lot of them, because the economy is so heated in Alberta, a lot of them are basically jobs that Canadians will not or won't take. The reality is, in Alberta, we would love to hire, and we do, put a priority on hiring Albertans and Canadians. Anybody who is going outside, we've heard it say, well, you just go outside of Canada because it's a cheap source of labor. Wrong. We've done some numbers, and we found that it actually costs an employer $12,000 to $14,000 per temporary foreign worker to get them into the country, landed, ready to go.
Alan, this is clearly an issue and we read this on the front page of the newspaper that's an issue for Alberta. Talk to us about, there's got to be Ontario companies that are still affected by this as well. So what's the Ontario Chamber's take on this?
There are, and the reality is Ken and I have spent considerable time on this issue in Ontario's support of the initiative that Alberta's been taking. When you look at the cost to bring in a temporary foreign worker, there's no savings here. This is costing employers a significant amount of money, and they're doing it because they need the labor. And there are people, I have to interrupt here for a moment. This is quite a process. We've been sitting here having our lunch. They're serving coffee now. I think, Glenn, that I've seen it all.
You're listening to Business to Business on 570 News, live from the annual meeting of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Charlottetown. Our guests are Alan Odette. He is the president and CEO of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. He's joined in discussion with Ken Cobley, president, CEO of the Alberta Chamber of Commerce, in discussion with Greg and Ian. Greg Durocher of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, and winner last night of the Executive of the Year, the Chamber Executive of the Year at the Canadian Chamber. And, of course, Ian McLean, President and CEO of the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce. We're being live web-streamed right now, courtesy of of Catherine Drake in the web studio. You can watch the program at 570news.com. And we continue now in discussion with Alan, Ken, Greg, and Ian.
Alan, do you want to carry on?
I will.
Now that you have your coffee?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I just want to say congratulations to Greg as well. I think Ian reflected it, just how important it is to be recognized by 1,800 communities across this country, I think reflects very, very well on Cambridge, knowing that they have such a capable leader and he's recognized by his peers. No greater recognition than your peers.
All right, we're going to come back. It's a great point to leave it, and we're going to come back with more as Business to Business, powered by Save On Energy.
Business to Business, powered by Save On Energy, a presentation of 570 News. Watch the live video webcast at 570news.com. We'll return with more Business to Business. What you know. It's who you know. Connecting community through business. This is Business to Business on 570 News, powered by Save On Energy.
And welcome back to Business to Business. This segment is brought to you by our good friends at Gallagher's Travel. We are going to return now live to Charlottetown, where Greg and Ian are attending the annual meeting of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. They are joined in their broadcast facility by Alan Odette, President and CEO of the Ontario Chamber, Ken Cobley, President and CEO of the Alberta Chamber of Commerce, and we want to thank Keenan Loomis, who joined the program earlier this afternoon. He is the President and CEO of the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. Gentlemen, take it away.
So Alan's just going to finish up with what we were talking about, the temporary foreign workers, and then and Ken will give some color of what types of jobs. I think we'll stick with these guys because then we all have to move on. We'll do this full segment here because there's a couple of big issues that Ontario is facing. But talk about temporary foreign workers and why. I mean, it may not be a huge issue in KW or Cambridge, but part of the power of the network, Canadian-wide and as well as Ontario, is that we deal with issues that affect business across the province, across the country. So, Alan?
Yeah, well, and that's exactly it. You know, I said to Ken yesterday, what they used to call temporary foreign workers were immigrants, and we need those people to come here and help with jobs that, frankly, we're not able to fill, and they are typically low-skilled jobs that many of our folks don't want to take. I'll tell you why this is important, and Ontario ought to be grateful to Alberta, in particular, for the success of oil and gas. Had we not had oil and gas in the last 5-7 years, Ontario would look a little bit different. Canada would look a lot different. So when we're here debating these matters at the Canadian Chamber level, it's important that we do support our colleagues and recognize that while this issue may be more prevalent in Alberta, it has significant impact on Ontario and, in particular, communities like Cambridge and Kitchener-Waterloo. So these are important matters, and for all of us as Canadians to sort of band together to solve these types of issues ultimately is going to help the country emerge stronger.
So Ken, give us some examples. I mean, I've seen in the headlines, or you see on the CBC News, where this emerged when you have people $24 Tim Hortons jobs in Medicine Hat as an example, or places in the oil patch. Talk about why this is important, and you were just off air saying, what's the fallout? You can end temporary foreign workers. What's the net impact for other parts of the country?
The fallout is, I mean, we're going to be obviously looking for labor wherever we can find it, which means that they may in fact be lured away, hopefully, from other provinces to come live in Alberta. We'll probably see an increase in the fly-in, fly-out employee. You will lighten.
That's not good for communities.
No, it is not.
Not good for communities.
Not at all. And you will likely see an increase, more than you already see, of outsourcing of manufacturing of equipment and materials that are required in Alberta to hopefully parts of Canada. A lot of that is offshored right now to Korea and East.
Yeah.
And we're seeing more and more of that even here, and I think the opportunity to work more collaboratively on interprovincial trade. You know, we heard from Parent Meeting this morning that we've had a free trade agreement with the United States and Mexico for a year. We've just signed a European trade agreement. For heaven's sakes, we need to break down some trade
barriers. The interprovincial trade barriers, absolutely.
Well, you raise a really good issue there, Alan, because the problem that we're having right now that can affect our long-term competitiveness as a nature is if Alberta can't get its product whether it's oil and gas, whether it's wheat, whether it's whatever, the tidewater.
Well, and we had Minister Moore on probably in the summer. We had him on because he was putting some political capital behind the whole issue of breaking down interprovincial trade barriers. And this is something that's a big issue that people don't understand it. But boy, oh boy, the Chamber's better get on board with this and say we have to. It doesn't matter. There will be there's some fallout to that. Yeah. But we can't be a trading nation when we can't trade inside Canada. So, but we got time's going to leave us here. But we really have to talk about, which is more of an Ontario issue.
Yeah, but you know what? I think Ken would certainly be interested in it because if the movement's starting in Ontario, you can.
And that's our big thing, Glenn. Which is fair tendering and the ability for anyone, whether union or not union, to bid on public projects.
Well, I had the opportunity, and I mentioned it earlier in the show that Alan had arranged for myself and Josh from his office, principal. Policy guy to go and meet with Minister Flynn, the Minister of Labour, because of our fair and open tendering, but also interest arbitration, which is a critically important thing to not just business taxpayers, but every taxpayer. So, Alan, you and I had a great meeting with the Minister, I think. Once you straightened all the pictures in his office, because well, it was traditional. The Minister of Labour, they were all leaned a little bit to the left, so you had to straighten them out.
Well, the irony of that is we arrived a few minutes early and we were led into the boardroom, and some of the photos of previous ministers were in fact crooked. So I took a moment to straighten them out.
No. Leaning left. Leaning left, not crooked.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm nonpartisan in all this. Listen, these two matters are very important, both open and fair tendering and interest arbitration. As I go around this province, and I had over 400 meetings around the province last year, interest arbitration is of particular importance because communities cannot pay for the emergency services that are being provided. We have communities of 25 and 30,000 with full slate police forces, and nothing against the fine men and women in the police force or the fire department or other emergency services. But frankly, when you're negotiating agreements with these types of workers that the municipality cannot afford, it doesn't make any sense. So
there's no bargaining. It's pattern bargaining, and you might as well do it once because everyone gets the same deal.
Well, and for your listeners, if they understand how interest arbitration works, typically the municipality will be in a negotiation, realize they can't pay. That will go to interest arbitration, often take up to 2 years to come to some sort of resolution. And you may have someone in Owen Sound that is being compared with an emergency worker in Toronto. And it's not comparing apples to oranges, and they're then putting the onus on the municipal government to pay that fee. It's not a sustainable way forward.
And this is something that all the Ontario Chamber's taken the lead on. Our two chambers have introduced resolutions over the last 4 years that I've been here, and we've put joint resolutions forward on this issue. But talking about the fair tendering is a huge one.
Well, it's big for Keenan too, and Hamilton.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have.
Let's do a quick run around of why it's important, because we've been talking about this for a year, but I think it would be helpful for our listeners to say it's not just Greg and Ian bitching about this happening in the region of Waterloo, but it will have some impact potentially across the country and across the province, and that's important for business to understand.
Although I don't suppose it'd come as a surprise to your listeners that it is just Greg and Ian going on about it.
No. We go on about things quite frequently.
Keenan, your thoughts?
Well, I just want to provide a little bit of an anecdote that really caused me to jump in to this issue, and we put together a policy that was just adopted by the OCC, and I'm proud of that. And so what happened was a few years ago, 3 carpenters were working on a Saturday on a gazebo in a park. A union guy shows up, offers to buy them meals, has 2 of them sign the cards, and so then this triggers a hearing at the labor board, and the notice of the hearing was sent to a fax machine that doesn't. The notice of the hearing was sent to a fax machine that doesn't work, and so the city of Hamilton was from henceforth is deemed to have to comply
work with one particular union on all of their construction projects, and that's what we've been talking about, Greg. And I think, Alan, I mean, the important part of this is how we deal with this moving forward, with in terms of how we deal with the provincial government, because it's a big issue.
It is, and I think few communities have understood this. You guys did, and collaboratively brought forward a resolution to our AGM, which was passed. And the reason I brought Greg to meet with the minister is you guys have brought some leadership to this. Now, the minister said to us, Minister Kevin Flynn, that they recognize this as an issue and that he wants to move on this sometime later this year or next. So we'll continue to hold the minister to account on this. I think all those who understand the issue recognize it just doesn't make sense for Ontario.
Well, here we got Ken looking over here. He's looking at me saying, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
You know what's important about this, and I think the principles here, so that it's not business against labor, and we've said this repeatedly.
Not at all.
We don't care whether it's a union shop or a non-union shop or anyone in between that gets the job. We want the lowest price, the best product, and whether that's a Canadian company, a local company, or a foreign company, the business choice. And I think
hey guys, we got about a minute to go. Any final comments as we sum up with Alan and Ken?
I can tell you we'll be down to Kitchener sometime over the course of the next 4, 6, 8 weeks with the new minister responsible for pensions in Ontario.
Yeah.
We'd like to, if we could maybe do your radio show or hold a roundtable with that minister.
We can do that.
This whole notion of an Ontario pension plan is really on the radar of small to medium-sized enterprises.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Ken, any last things from Alberta?
Well, you know, we'd sure invite people, one, to come out to live in Alberta.
As long as you're working age.
As long as you're working age. Or alternately, come out and see what kind of sales you can make. You might be, if you come out to Alberta and you're a business person, bring your PO book.
There's lots of perfect. And we're gonna do a trip. We're gonna be doing a trip and going out to Alberta and try to bring some of our listeners and our members to see how they can make money. Any last things?
I'm a proud University of Waterloo grad. I'm happy to be on this radio show, and I just want to tell all of your listeners, Ian and Greg are tremendous mentors, amazing people within the Chamber network. They've been great to me. I'm fairly new in my job, and I've advanced a lot because of their insight. And
Ian's much younger than us, Glenn.
How much did they pay you? How much did they pay you to say that?
Anyways,
he got an extra dessert.
Anyways, this is always fun to be at the Canadian Chamber and to kind of the power of the network, and that's what we always say is the power of our individual chambers, but also the power of the Ontario and the Canadian Chamber network is hugely important.
All right, guys. Ian and Greg representing Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce annual meeting. Great job today, gentlemen. Thank you so much, Alan Odette, Ontario Chamber President, Keenan Loomis, Hamilton President of the Hamilton Chamber, and Ken Cobley, President CEO of the Alberta Chamber of Commerce. We're going to come back with our Save On Energy segment. We'll be joined by Jeff Quint as Business to Business continues on 570 News.
We'll be right back with more Business to Business powered by Save On Energy. Call in with your questions at star 570, 570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. Waterloo region. And when businesses support each other, they support the community. Now back to Business, powered by Save On Energy on 570 News.
And welcome back to a special edition of Business to Business, powered by Save On Energy on 570 News. Our thanks again to Greg and Ian, who joined us from Charlottetown, where they are attending the annual conference, the annual gathering of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Thanks to Alan Odette of the Ontario Chamber, Keenan Loomis of the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, and Ken Cobley, President, CEO of the Alberta Chamber of Commerce, for appearing on the show today. Thanks to producers Catherine Drake and Adam Sanderson, and we leave you now with conversation with Sarah Colvin that the gentleman had. Sarah with the Cambridge and North Dumfries Hydro. Welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Save On Energy. And on that note, we welcome back, Sarah's been here before, but we welcome back Sarah Colvin from Cambridge and North Dumfries Hydro, here to talk about Save On Energy and something unique that's going on, right?
Glenn, you're kind of techie. and you're kind of into this kind of stuff, and I know I certainly am.
Well, I'm really big into energy conservation.
And energy conservation, of course, that's the whole principle around this little device that Cambridge is piloting, and it's my favorite little thing that I've just got to get a hold of, and it's called a Nest thermostat. Sarah, tell us what a Nest thermostat does first.
So the Nest thermostat is really one of sort of the first forays into two-way communicating Wi-Fi smart thermostat. So what's happening in the residential space, and you're seeing a lot of competition between companies like Google and Apple, is to really give customers control and connection over devices in their home. And so Nest is a company, and their sort of motto is to redesign and rethink products in the home that are unloved. And if you've seen a Nest thermostat, you can tell that they've put that spin on it because it's very slick, it's very technology driven. And you can see that the designers who came up with the thermostat, were the same people who came out with the iPod for Apple and left the company and started this one, and have really started reimagining devices for the home and started with the thermostat.
Well, and I've seen them for a long time. They've been in well, not a long time, but probably for a year or so. They've been available at, different chain stores that are around, and hardware stores that are around. And yeah, we see this little display set up and this Nest thermostat, something out of outer space it almost looks like. And of course, immediately when I saw it, I was excited about it and said to my wife immediately, I need one of these. And she said, no, you don't need one of those right now. But I think we're going to need these because people's lives are busy, and being able to, I don't know how many times I've left the house and maybe thought, did I leave the air conditioning on, or did I shut it off, or what did I do?
Right.
But you can check right on your smartphone whether or not what you've got it set at.
Exactly. So you have the connected on-the-go ability with the thermostat. So you can go on your phone, you could go on a tablet, and you could adjust the temperature. So if you happen to leave for vacation or you're at the cottage and you think, I could really use, some energy savings, I really should have turned that down or turned that up, you can go on your phone and do that. So before we leave the cottage, we'll go on, we'll turn the AC up, and the house is comfortable by the time we get there. Mm-hmm. But we've been able to save energy by having the AC off that time that we're out of the house.
Absolutely.
Now, this term Nest, is that an acronym for something? And tell us more about this company. You said it's a company called Nest?
The company's called Nest, and this thermostat is specifically called the Nest Learning Thermostat. They also have a connected smoke alarm and CO detector that works in tandem with the thermostat. So it's again one of those sort of early entrances into sort of the connected home, smart home. And the idea between those integrated pieces of technology is that if the carbon dioxide was to have an alert off of the Nest Protect system, that it would actually trigger the furnace to shut off, which is typically one of the most common reasons for having higher CO2 level CO in the home. So those two devices are able to connect to each other and communicate that way, which brings in a whole level of safety for a homeowner as well.
Now, Cambridge and North Dumfries Hydro are piloting a project, and maybe you want to identify that because it's not with the other hydro authorities,
right.
but hopefully will be soon. But maybe you want to talk about the program that Cambridge and North Dumfries Hydro are.
Sure. So we've partnered with the Ontario Power Authority, who runs the Save on Energy programs, to sort of bring this new technology to Ontario and really evaluate what the potential energy savings are. So we're looking at with customers having the ability to control their thermostats, is there energy savings in that, which we think that there are, because the most common thing with programmable thermostats is you put it on the wall and then you never program it. Mm-hmm. And you kind of, you peck at it when you walk by if you're comfortable, not comfortable, and adjust it that way. So that's the big part. The second part of the program is that we're offering sort of an opportunity through Nest called Rush Hour Rewards. And it's the next generation of the Peak Saver Plus program that we've been doing with residential customers. And the idea being to help Ontario's electricity grid on the hottest summer days when there's a strain, when the grid is, trying very hard to keep up with the demand for electricity because of air conditioners, because of, plant operation in the summer. So with these thermostats, we can work with Nest to send a signal to customers, and it just slightly adjusts the AC usage for about a 4-hour window. So with this program, we give you day-ahead notification. You'll get an alert on your phone. You'll get an alert on the thermostat that tells you that we're expecting an event tomorrow, say between 1 and 5. Your Nest thermostat about an hour before will start to pre-cool the home for you to make sure that we can get through that 4-hour window of peak electricity use, but also maintain comfort for the customer. And one of the differences with this program that we haven't had in previous generations with Peak Saver is that customers can override the event. So if you're home, you're uncomfortable, or you're having a party, something going on in your house, and the adjustment isn't working for you, you can override it right on the thermostat. And we haven't had that before.
Well,
that's
Sarah,
exciting. I think that's neat stuff.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us. If people want to find out more, where can they go for information about it?
You can visit our website, which is camhydro.com/nest. And for a limited time, we're offering $200 off. The thermostat retails for $249. So it's a great deal for customers who want to take advantage of it right now. And you can buy it at a local retailers or online at nest.com. But find out more on our website.
Great. Thank you. Sarah Colvin is our guest, Cambridge North Dumfries Hydro, here to talk about the new Nest thermostat as part of the Save on Energy program. You're listening to Business on 570 News.